This is Born Strategist, and in this video, I'm going to be asking, as well as answering, the following question. Why do video game movies suck? Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because we've seen a lot of terrible video game to film adaptations over the years, and it doesn't seem as if it's going to stop anytime soon, and for that very reason, we're going to continue to get more of them. Now, one of the most obvious things that I've noticed is that video game to film adaptations have a very difficult time transferring over from a video game to a film. And the reason why is because sometimes video games can be up to 6 to 8 hours, if not more. And when you're trying to condense it all down into like a 2-hour time frame, it's rather difficult because you're going to leave out certain things that a lot of fans liked. And that's unfortunate. And it's the same thing with comic books. Sometimes there's just so much lore and so much stuff that you just can't cram into a 2-hour time frame. And that's the problem. Now, if you were doing like a TV series or something like that, then it would probably be better suited to a video game because then you can go ahead and address particular issues or establish characters better because you have more time to do it. But generally speaking, movies don't really have that kind of time. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because you can tell all the story that you need to tell within a 2-hour time frame. It's just that it's rather difficult to do, and you need to find someone that's really passionate about the source material in order to do it. And that's another problem. Generally speaking, Hollywood writers, stereotypical walking, talking Hollywood writers, are the ones who do these video game to film adaptations, and they probably don't even play the video games that they're writing about to begin with. And that's the reason why you get terrible video game to film adaptations, because the source material is generally ignored and they only take small snippets of it to make it resemble something that used to be. Now, when you look at video game to film adaptations, it's not just writers or the lack of utilization when it comes to the source material. It's also about casting or having the same aesthetic or theme that the video games were probably known for. And generally speaking, that usually gets lost in translation. Now, when you look at particular games that have adapted well, they are few and far between. I mean, seriously, there's not very many of them out there. I mean, granted, I think Mortal Kombat was probably about as good as you can get in terms of a video game to film adaptation. But when you look outside of Mortal Kombat, there's not very many out there. And that's the problem, is that whether it be something like Super Mario Brothers or Resident Evil, they just don't transfer all that well to the silver screen because they didn't manage to utilize the source material as well as they should have. And that's another problem, is that the source material may not be as good as it should have been to go to the silver screen, meaning that the narrative of the video game itself was probably lackluster or wasn't as thick or dense as it should have been. And for that very reason, sometimes writers just have to make shit up as they go to fill in the gaps and to make a movie fit into a 90-minute time frame or a 2-hour time frame or whatever it may be. And when that happens, you generally just have a very shitty movie. Now, aside from that, one of the biggest issues that I've seen with a lot of video game to film adaptations is that the ones that usually get adapted for a film generally aren't realistic. And the thing is, if you're going to try to do a live action movie, then generally speaking, the best ones that are going to be able to translate are the ones that are going to be the most realistic. So if you're doing something like maybe like Dead Space or something like that, there's some measure of realism to that because even though it may be like a sci-fi space survival horror game, it still has potential to be a very realistically done video game to film adaptation, meaning that it has the potential to be realistic enough, believable enough to where you can suspend your disbelief. And that's something that you can do as long as you're adapting a somewhat realistic video game to a live action movie. Now, obviously, you're going to have a harder time if you're trying to adapt a fantasy video game to a live action movie because sometimes it won't translate very well, or maybe you're trying to adapt an anime to a live action movie because sometimes it just doesn't go over very well. I mean, we've seen this with Avatar: The Last Airbender, we've seen this with Dragon Ball Z, and those are just a few notable examples, but still it could be done if it were done in the right way. But ideally, you probably want to make sure that it would be an animated movie, not a live action one. With that said, what's your thoughts? What's your opinions? Let me know below. Until next time, thanks for watching. For more objective reviews, strategy guides, commentaries, and more, stay tuned to this channel.